Classifying polynomials, as we said a second ago, simply just means naming your polynomials. And there's two ways that you can name a polynomial. You can name it by its degree, and you can name it by the number of terms that you have. So on this chart, I'm actually going to work bottom to top. So in this first example, I have my largest exponent that I have is a 4. So I have a degree of 4. And I have 3 terms. So when I have a degree of 4, what it is called, the degree name is called a quartic. This is a quartic polynomial. Because I have 3 terms, it's a trinomial. Tri means 3. So this polynomial is known as a quartic polynomial. Now in the next example, 2x cubed, it has a degree of 3, and there's 1 term there. So because it has a degree of 3, my degree name is cubic. So this is a cubic polynomial, and because there's 1 term, it is a monomial. Now, the next one, the one above, is a polynomial that you have already seen before this semester. So in this one, I have a degree of 2. And notice how I have 3 terms. Well, if you remember way back at the beginning of the semester in Unit 1B, when we were learning about functions and introduction to functions, anytime you saw an x squared, it always had that U shape to it. It was a parabola. Well, those are called quadratics. And because I have 3 terms, this is a quadratic trinomial. The one above, we already said before, notice how there's not an exponent there. Well, the exponent is going to be a 1. So I have a degree of 1, and I have 2 terms. So what do you think the name is going to be for this expression whenever I have a degree of 1? Well, if you haven't already caught on, this is a linear expression. And 2 terms means I'm a binomial. And so, if you've already figured it out, our degree name is actually the same thing as what the look of the function is going to be. And in the slides that you saw before this, we talked about why combining like terms, why you can only put those linear terms together. Why a 5x can only be combined with a 7x. Why an x squared only matches 2 other x squares. And it has to do with the look of the function. So when we name by the degree, we actually give it the function name. So the one above, what happens with this one? Well, notice how I don't have a degree at all. The reason why I don't have a degree is because 6 doesn't have any variables. Now, if I wanted to attach a variable to it, well, now I've changed the value. So if you remember in your properties of exponents, if I raise my x to a 0, anything raised to a 0 power has a value of 1. So that's the same thing as saying 6 times 1. So that means I have a degree of 0. And anytime I have a degree of 0, then I am known as a constant. And we talked about that one above. A constant is always going to be a number without a variable attached. There's 1 term here, so this is considered a constant monomial. So just a little bit of background on naming polynomials. This is really important whenever you get to Math 3. because in Math 3 you've got a whole unit dedicated to polynomial functions. So we name it by its degree and the number of terms. The degree is always going to be your largest exponent. And then your number of terms, your terms are always going to be separated by addition or subtraction signs.